Welcome, everyone. It's so good to see all of you on this beautiful Sunday morning. And thank you, John, for that beautiful music. It's a lovely way to start. I feel like we're so blessed to have, I know our choir isn't here for the summer, but the incredible musicians that we have here with Michael and John and Leon and Richard and so many people that are here. So anyway, it's good to see all of you. We do have assistive hearing devices at the back there for anyone who would like to borrow them, as well as enlarged print programs. Tatum is here today, and we have at least one child. And he will, after we light the chalice, probably take them out, and we'll tell you about that. There will be light refreshments downstairs, which you can get to either by the back stairways back there or going down this way. The flowers this morning are from the garden of Richard and Pierre, beloved members of our community, who opened up their home to us to have a tour, and they're just incredible. So we're so grateful to have them here. I didn't think you'd be here today, but it's lovely. I have one other announcement too, which I always get torn whether it's an announcement or a candle, but speaking of the Lloyd family, Sophia, who goes now by So, called me yesterday and told me that she's on her way here to see her brother Dan. And she is traveling with a cat, and she needs a place to stay. She's planning on being here through the month of August. And so she's glad to pay rent or whatever, but if you have ideas, you could either see me or see her aunt. Is that right? Yes. And and I'll leave information with you, Joanne, so if someone contacts you, we can explore that further. But I just wanted to mention that. So we're very grateful she's coming, and that the family is coming together at this time. Into the Woods is our theme this month and is on the cover of our program. For me, it conjures many lovely thoughts of letting go of the worries and feelings associated with this stressful time in our world. A place to breathe, center, and let go. At first, it triggered the children's song, Teddy Bear's Picnic, which I used to sing for our children and grandchildren. Do many of you know that piece? Oh, yeah. I used to love it and sing it all the time to the families. Which goes, if you go into the woods today, you better not go alone. It's lovely down in the woods today, but safer to stay at home. Because every day that ever there was, they'll gather there for certain, because today's the day the teddy bears have their picnic. And it goes on, but it's a really fun song. And I was also thinking of all the bears that have been roaming our town and feeling like there's some connection there. And then I started thinking of James Taylor's Fire and Rain, not because of the lyrics so much, but Leon is talking about the fire of thought. And we have fires burning in Canada, bringing smoke-filled air, and our weather constantly alternating between fire, the sun, and rain. We are grateful for both and appreciate the states that are compassionately helping Canada fight their fires as well, as opposed to threatening Canada with tariffs. But this weekend, my mind went into the garden. Thank you to the lovely invitation from Pierre and Richard, beloved members of our community, who invited us to their home to view their gardens. This bouquet, by the way, is a gift from them. We went with Joanna and Norwood, and Anne Winya and Martha Leonard were already there, as was Linda Galveo. I especially loved all the sculptures placed throughout the grounds, including an enormous one by Herb Ferris. My heart and mind escaped into this lovely world for a time. And then, in keeping with the topic for today of the fire within us, I have a poem of Thoreau's from Walden. called I Went to the Woods. Many of you are probably familiar with it. But I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. I did not wish to live what was not life. Living is so dear. Nor did I wish to practice resignation unless it was quite necessary. I wanted to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life, to live so sturdily and Spartan-like as to put to rout all that was not life, to cut in a broad swath and shave close, to drive life into a corner and reduce it to its lowest terms, publish its meanness to the world, or if it were sublime, to know it by experience and be able to give a true account of it in my next excursion. We will now have a time of meditation and prayer.
Good morning. One day in seminary, my teacher, Sheikh Yasir Charlie, he was from Afghanistan actually, he coached the Olympic swimming team from that country. He's an interesting man, but I had a conversation with him, and in that conversation, we talked about free will and determinism, or fate, you know. And he said, do you believe in fate or free will? And what do you think I said? So I said free will, and he said, you're a Unitarian Universalist, and I was like, yeah. And he said, why do you believe in free will? And I said, I don't like the idea that my future is already predetermined. I'd like to think that I'm making decisions for myself. And he said, lift one of your feet into the air. And I did, like I showed you. And he said, that's free will. Now lift the other foot in the air. So I shifted. And he said, no. Lift the other foot in the air without putting your first foot down. And I said, I can't do that. He said, that's fate. If I could, I surely would stand on the rock where Moses stood. Pharaoh's armies got surrounded. Oh, Mary, don't you weep. The first verse of this song is my favorite, except for the last, which is also my favorite. I think there are 7 verses in all, although many more have been improvised. The 4th verse is, Moses stood on the Red Sea shore and smote the water with a 2x4. The 4th verse is also my favorite because I love the word smote. Smote is the past tense. The infinitive is to smite. To smite is to strike with a firm blow. The past tense of smite is not smited. Smited is not a word. The past tense of smite is smote. Smote is a very cool word. I really like it. Smote is why the 4th verse of the song is also my favorite. The 7th verse of the song is, God gave Noah the rainbow sign. No more water, fire next time. Pharaoh's armies got surrounded. Oh, Mary, don't you weep. I love the 7th verse because it reminds me of James Baldwin's writing from 1963. He wrote, if we, and by we I mean the relatively conscious blacks and the relatively conscious whites, who must, like lovers, insist on or even create the consciousness of others, if we do not falter in our duty, handful that we are, it may be possible to end the racial nightmare, to achieve our country, and to change the history of the world. He said that if we do not now dare everything, then the prophecy as sung by a slave in the Bible is upon us. God gave Noah the rainbow sign. No more water. Fire next time. He dropped the mic when he wrote those words. He closed the book with those words. These words were also his chosen title, The Fire Next Time, written 63 years ago in 1963. We've come a long way since then. We are much more than a handful now. We have not faltered in our duty to achieve our country. When I was a child, when I was a kid, I remember sitting at the back of the church in the very last row behind some deeply committed Americans, some deeply committed protesters, wrapped from head to toe in the American flag. I saw no other clothing that they were wearing. I thought that that was the coolest possible outfit, and I wanted to get me one. I loved what they were wearing, deepest love of country. Violence is not an aspect of deepest love of country. Ridicule is not an aspect of deepest love. It's not that we're too weak to take the ridicule. It isn't that we could be described as snowflakes. We are able to honor and respect ridicule only from those who are younger than 7 years old or so. Corruption is not a part of deepest love. False diplomacy is not an aspect of deepest love. False witness is not an aspect of it. I wanted to wear the flag. I've always wanted that. There were these floor-to-ceiling windows in the southern exposure of the church, my home church in Lincroft, New Jersey, the church where I was as a child. If I could, I surely would take you to those floor-to-ceiling windows in Lincroft, New Jersey. I remember looking out of those windows for very long moments at a time when Reverend Harold Dean was preaching and we had time enough to dream. We'd stare out of those windows and we'd feel connection with the world outside of us. The world that was coming in through those windows, with which the beauty of Harold's words and the beauty of the trees entirely agreed. Winter, spring, summer, and fall. The falling snow was the best. We lived for that connection. We lived in that connection. Because far beyond the grasp of hands or light to meet the eye, past the reaches of the mind, there we find the key to nature's harmony in an architecture so entwined. Like the birds whose patterns grace the sky and carry all who join in love expanding, the message of peace will rise in flight, taking the weight of the world upon its wing in the oneness of everything. Jim Scott wrote that. It's in our Teal hymnal, number 1052. There's a whole lot of weight in the world these days. Everything feels so heavy, so rain-soaked, so weighted down and stuck. It's hard sometimes to remember all the lightness that surrounds us now. So I have to ask this important philosophical question. How many students of history does it take to screw in a light bulb? Considering the state of the world these days, I thought it might be nicer to start off with a joke. I thought about doing a knock-knock joke, but I couldn't find one that I really liked. I thought about writing a limerick, but I didn't have too much with that. So I turned to an old favorite, and it really paid off for me. I wanted to start this morning by making a comment about history that deepened and developed over time. I wanted to try to write a light bulb joke. Things started off just fine. I wrote, how many students of history does it take to screw in a light bulb? But then I couldn't come up with a sufficiently pithy response. So I did some research and I found out that light bulb jokes are a cycle of jokes, a cycle of related jokes that ask how many people of a certain group need to change or replace or screw in a light bulb. Generally, the punchline answer is a stereotype of the larger group. Light bulb jokes are used to satirize a wide range of cultures, beliefs, and occupations. The most lighthearted light bulb jokes I found online had to do with students at colleges, at Princeton, Columbia, and Dartmouth. Like, how many Princeton students does it take to screw in a light bulb? The answer is 2, 1 to mix the martinis and 1 to call the electrician. How many Columbia students does it take to screw in a light bulb? The answer is 76. 1 to change the light bulb, 50 to protest the light bulb's right not to change, and 25 to hold a counter-protest on the other side of the quad at the same time. How many Dartmouth students does it take to screw in a light bulb? The answer is none. Hanover doesn't have electricity. That joke is a little bit mean. Of course, things got meaner still. How many Yale students does it take to screw in the light bulb? The answer is none. New Haven looks better in the dark. How many Harvard students does it take? The answer is 1. He holds up the light bulb and the world revolves. I'm a fan of Harvard, although I did not go there. I went to Tufts, which is very close by. They are 2 miles away from one another, and yes, I did find a Tufts example. How many Tufts students does it take to screw in a light bulb? The answer is 2, 1 to change the bulb, and the other to say loudly that he did it as well as an Ivy League student. Which of course is entirely inaccurate and not even funny. I'm actually quite proud of my alma mater. I still invest in the swag occasionally. I did not have my Tufts sweatshirt on that day though, that day when 2 friends of one of my neighbors, a young couple, came to visit East Barnet, where I live. They wanted to get out of the city and they wanted to get back to nature. They wanted to go to the woods, as it were. We were all sitting around the fire that evening, not too long after the sun went down. It was a beautiful night. Soon enough, though, I got the sense that they were both from Tufts University. It was some reference that they had made that made me wonder. So I asked them, did you guys graduate from Tufts? And very gently, they both answered affirmatively. I said, Tufts is a terrible school. Everyone there thinks they're so smart. And neither of my 2 new friends responded. They both said absolutely nothing. They said nothing really loudly. So I said, I heard that. And one of them, the boyfriend, gently asked, you heard what? We didn't say anything. I said, you both cursed me out underneath your breath. I didn't hear you, but I could hear you. And they said, immediately and defensively, the boyfriend said, we did no such thing. And he was right, and we all knew it because they had not uttered a sound. And then I said, I graduated from Tufts in 1987. And they both responded successively. Successively, the boyfriend said, oh yes, we cursed you out pretty bad. Twice. And then the girlfriend said, the second time was in French. Interestingly, Tufts was founded by a Universalist in 1852, 1 year after Thoreau wrote Walden, the words that Anne quoted earlier, a book that still speaks to us. Charles Tufts was a Universalist. I wonder what he would have thought about light bulb jokes. I doubt that he would have appreciated the one about Tufts, or any of them really, considering the fact that he died 3 years before the light bulb was invented. Nevertheless, I can't help thinking that he just might have appreciated the one light bulb joke, the one that came at the expense of Harvard University, with whom we have somewhat of an unspoken rivalry. Something tells me that he would have liked that one somehow. Light bulb jokes always come at an expense. There's always a lighthearted rub, and one that is geared to a specific community. How many Williams students does it take to screw in a light bulb? The answer is the whole student body. When you're snowed in, there's nothing else to do. How many Boston University students does it take to screw in a light bulb? The answer is 4. 1 to change the light bulb, and 2 to check his math homework. That one takes a moment to sink in. All of the light bulb jokes that I encountered in my brief surveil online, only one group entirely escaped unscathed with no expenses and emerged triumphantly. How many Beatles does it take to screw in the light bulb? George Harrison told this joke himself. I learned this joke from him from his Scorsese interview. He told the joke and he said the answer was 4. An unqualified 4. It was a joke that made fun of no one, which is genuinely delightful and deeply funny. How many Beatles does it take to screw in a light bulb? 4. Especially when you watch the laughter slowly growing in George Harrison's eyes. Perhaps the best light bulb joke for this morning is how many Unitarian Universalists does it take to screw in a light bulb at Henry David Thoreau's place in Walden? When I asked the hive mind, that's how I refer to Mr. Google. When I asked the hive mind the more generic question, how many Unitarian Universalists does it take to screw in a light bulb? The answer was that it takes at least 13. 1 to change the bulb, and 12 to form a committee to examine the moral and legal and ethical ramifications of changing bulbs. It further said that the actual number often fluctuates. Some iterations of the joke suggest that Unitarian Universalists need as many as 300 people to change the light bulb, because 300 people are needed to cycle through the various board and subcommittee appointments. Other versions simply note that you are welcome to write a poem or perform a modern dance about the bulb. All paths to luminescence are equally valid. Again, entirely inaccurate. All kidding aside, the light bulb was invented in 1879, 14 years after the end of the American Civil War. And Henry David Thoreau wrote Walden in 1851, 10 years before the beginning of the American Civil War. I believe that Henry David Thoreau went into the woods to discover what his teacher called the fire of thought. The fire of thought is what Ralph Waldo Emerson believed was required of ministry. Emerson might have been following Plato's example. Plato believed that the fiercest thought was required for the good life. Plato believed that the unexamined life is not worth living. Plato believed that Emerson and Thoreau believed in the fire of thought. Plato believed in it, Emerson did, Thoreau did. The phrase comes out of an address that Emerson delivered not on July 19th of 2026, but on July 15th of 1838, 41 years before the invention of the light bulb. Emerson delivered this speech to the senior class of the Divinity School, their professors, the local ministry at Divinity Hall at Harvard Divinity College in Cambridge on that Sunday evening, presumably by candlelight. In that address, he spoke passionately about what it means to speak before a gathered assembly in a religious way. He spoke about what it means to follow the rules and to miss the mark, and he cautioned his students against doing this. He cautioned them against becoming so focused on the structure of things that what you're talking about is emptied of substance and empty of value. He said, whenever the pulpit is usurped by a formalist, then the worshiper is defrauded and disconsolate. We shrink as soon as the prayers begin, which do not uplift but smite and offend us. Emerson said, under these circumstances, we are wise to wrap our cloaks around us and to secure as best we can a solitude that hears such preachers not. Emerson told a story. He said, once I heard a preacher who so sorely tempted me to say that I would go to church no more. A snowstorm was falling around us. The snow was real, but the preacher was more like a ghost. The eye felt sad, contrasting looking at him and then looking out of the window behind him into the beautiful meteor of the snow. He had lived in vain. He had no one word intimating that he had laughed or wept or married or was in love or had been commended or cheated or chagrined. If he had ever lived and acted, we were none the wiser for it. The capital secret of his profession, namely to convert life into truth, he had not learned. Here the word capital means excellent. The capital secret, or the excellent secret of preaching in Emerson's view, is to convert life into truth, to search for and to find within the specifics of one's own experience the keys that open the door to a more universal understanding, to know something that we have not known before, to learn, to reach beyond our circles, to grow. I'm not talking about phrases that totalize and dismiss at the same time, like we've all had our ups and downs, or we're all doing the best that we can. These words are true in a narrow sense, but they are not always true. We have to be careful. We have to think critically and act compassionately at once. As is written in the Gospel of Matthew, we must be as wise as serpents and as gentle as doves. We cannot be wise and gentle. When we cannot be wise and gentle, when we fall short of our potential, ministry is less available to us. We become rich in structure and poor in substance. We become the formalist preacher whose life pattern and prayer practices are unaligned. Emerson railed against such preachers. Not one fact in all his experience had yet imported into his doctrine. He had plowed and planted. He had talked and bought and sold. He had read books. He had eaten and drunken. His head aches. His heart throbs. He smiles and suffers, yet there was not one surmise, no hint in all of his discourse that he had ever lived at all. Not a line did he draw out of real history. The true preacher can be known by this, that he deals out to the people of his life passed through the fire of thought. Emerson was fearless. So was Thoreau. I believe that Thoreau went to the woods to find this fire of thought, direct experience, and beauty. He detailed his life specifically. He thought about every detail. He paid attention to the home in which he was constructing for himself. In the house in which we live, there is sometimes great pain, as there was in Houston this last week, when a man named Lorenzo Salgado Araujo, who was 52 years old and the father of 3, was killed by ICE during an attempted arrest. How do we explain to his 3 children why he's no longer here? We have a policy and we have practices that have not yet passed through the fire of thought. There was a moment last week when Tom Holman, who's the head of this project, said that he would pause traffic stops because they weren't working well, because they were too often ending in death. Our American president then discontinued that and said, "Not on my watch." How do we discover, develop, strengthen the tissue that it takes to be less heavy-hearted about our policies, to pass them through the fire of thought so that they can achieve their excellence, so that 3 children of an honest man in Houston still have their father to come home to? The same thing happened to Johann Sebastian Duran Guerrero, who was 26 years old and the father of a 3-year-old who was killed by ice just last week in Biddeford, Maine. I'm sensitive to this one because the friend that I just lost grew up in Biddeford. His parents are there now, grieving the loss of their son and also a violation in their community. Senator Angus King's office said that the Department of Homeland Security had confirmed that Johann Sebastian Duran Guerrero was not the target of any warrant. Maine Immigration Rights Coalition said that Duran Guerrero was authorized to work in the United States and had been issued a security card number. There can be no accounting for this. We are not gentle enough for the sorrow. We are not wise enough for our policies. We are not full of heart, courageous enough to hold Carolina Rojas Alvarez, the wife and the mother of this child who lost her father, this woman who just lost her husband. We can go to all the schools we have. We can go to Harvard or Princeton, Yale, Tufts, Williams, Columbia, Dartmouth, Yale, but we will never be wise enough to be able to account for this kind of loss. The only wisdom here is to stop this from happening. These deaths at the hands of law enforcement are not the costs of doing business. They are a runaway American dream. And this is not new to us. We have seen this before. Cesar Espinosa is the head of an organization called FEEL, or Family of Familias, my Spanish is terrible, Familias Inmigrantes y Estudiantes en la Lucha, which is immigrant families and students in the struggle. He put these events that are going on in Houston and in Biddeford in an historical context, and he said it was much like what we saw with Emmett Till. It was much like what we saw when an innocent young black child was killed at the hands of people who were trying to keep a level of American propriety real and were overly violent. What Mamie Till chose to do was to see that her son's casket was left open. Her son was brutally beaten, but she saw to it that the casket would remain open so that she could expose the meanness that she experienced in her life to the world. She kept the casket open so that we could learn how to not reproduce these things again in our world. Some of us have learned this. Others of us have not. Finding a way to push back and say no is the singular, most romantic and beautiful and religious gesture that we can make right now. Finding a way to say no to finding a way to interrupt every moment of suffering. I have been criticized as the minister of this church for North Chapel's gesture to so wholeheartedly embrace justice and freedom in Gaza. There are those of us in our community who are injured by that gesture of solidarity. We have also worked very hard with the rabbi, with Eileen Haig, with the community at Shir Shalom, to begin to weave the muscle that it will take to hold two places at the same time, to be critical and loving at the same time, to be wise as serpents and gentle as doves. How do we do this? I don't know. We'll probably fall down a bunch of times, but it's enough to begin, and it's enough to try. It's enough to believe that fate and free will coexist. It's enough to try to put our stamp of beauty on these days in which we live. It is enough. It is enough. Is it enough? It is enough to hold in our hearts the goodness and the beauty that we see in our lives. It is enough to stand together and say we want peace. It is enough to not yell, but speak quietly into the fray. No, there is a better way. It is enough to reach for one another in times of need. It is enough to cry in sorrow when we don't
succeed in our task. It is enough to get back up again and try again. It is enough. We are enough. These decisions are easy. May we make them in kindness, compassion, and grace for the good of our world, for the beauty of our children, and in defense of the dearest things we love. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen.